Hi, and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast all about the things it takes to be a professional musician aside from actually playing your instrument. My name is Emily Dolan Davis. I've been drumming since 1999, professionally since 2008, and helping others do the same since 2018, and that is why we're here today. So welcome. So this week's subject has been inspired by a number of things that have kind of been happening in my personal life over the last couple of weeks, but also from some of my students and what they've been sort of dealing with, and it's made me reflect on my own past in my drumming career and my approach. And essentially this is about the importance of being your own cheerleader. Essentially, that's kind of the gist of this, because I think inherently, I was going to say creatives, I was going to say musicians, then I was going to say creatives, but I think humans, we struggle with self-esteem, mostly, I believe. I think if you're listening to this episode right now, you probably do, just like I do, and certainly have done in the past. And I think I just wanted to highlight the importance of kind of getting that internal validation thing going, to get that internal self-confidence going, not looking to other people for not just validation, but potentially then guidance on what you should do in your career or in life. It's very ironic, you're listening to a podcast about suggestions about your career, but you know what I'm saying, like, by listening to this, it isn't met with, oh, okay, then that's what I must do. It's more like, okay, that's interesting, I'll try that, or I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that, or whatever. There's more of a looking, like, you get an external idea and then you take it internal and go, how do I feel about that? Do I want to try that? It's a question, it's not a given. And I think that it becomes very dangerous. In fact, I know it becomes incredibly dangerous when you stop looking inside to make your decisions, but also as a way to gauge how you're feeling, like what's happening, if you're happy, if you want things to change, if you're fulfilled, all these things. I know, you cannot look outside of yourself for these answers. You have to look inside, and this kind of, I suppose in a way, does come off the back of the episode that I did about the fear of silence and just being able to sit with your thoughts and your feelings and all of that. Dude, when I tell you, I am the person that when I feel that discomfort, I'm straight away researching. How do I get rid of this? What do I need to know? What is the meaning of life? It's all that stuff. And I've historically, that has been my go-to. It still is sometimes, I fall into that trap, but now I'm trying to just sit and ask myself that question, not the outside world, not ask other people what to do, because they each have their own motivations, things they're going through. They are not you. And I think relying on that can be very, very dangerous. So I just want to go through, I suppose, the kind of dangers of this kind of external validation, and then the actual benefits. I was looking up, I wanted to make sure that there was scientific validity to what I was saying, because it's all good and well me saying, oh, well, this is great, or whatever. I was like, no. I want to have some sort of scientific accuracy with this, so that it's not just me spouting my gob, which I often do, and that's fine because it's my experience. But at the same time, I'm still working through this stuff myself. Like, it's hard to just look inside yourself for answers and to trust yourself, but also to build yourself up, basically, and allow yourself that, because it does not come naturally to me. I'm going to assume it might not come naturally to you either. But yeah, I just wanted to share the dangers of this thing of not trusting your own inner cheerleader, as it were, or utilizing your inner cheerleader, and instead looking to other people for these things, as well as how to actually implement it. Because I think for a lot of us, you just think, well, how? Where do I start? And I know I've spoken about sitting in silence for a while, but That's not going to do much if your inner voice is berating you and just going, you're rubbish, you're no good at this, or you're replaying, conversations that you've had, you're trying to change the outcome, blah, 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 blah. That's not useful. There needs to be a better intention, should we say, for yourself. And as I say, I wanted to kind of make sure that this was scientifically accurate as far as I'm aware, as far as I've researched, and therefore I'm hoping that this will speak to the logic side of your brain. If you're like me, I like to work with things that have been proven, so that I can then try them out. And yeah, you'll still have the kind of emotional reaction to a lot of this, I'm sure. But if you can I'm good when I have a bit of logic. I'm like, okay, no, wait, stop, 1 second. Logically, does this make sense? So anyway, let's go. So external validation, as I said, I think a lot of us as humans, as creatives, as musicians have this, where we're looking to other people for that self-worth, if you like. And I think it's a big reason that a lot of us get into music. It's a big reason that a lot of us perform on stage, create music to release, all that stuff, even start our businesses. It's to get that external sort of nod of like, you are good enough sort of thing. And as I say, it's very much the reason that I pursued a career in music. I've spoken about this quite a few times now. The more that I look at it, the more I realise the extent to which it was my coping mechanism, but it was also something that I could elicit an external reaction from people. And it was, especially at the beginning, incredible validation of like, you are worthy of existence because you can play drums. And at the time, it was the end of the 90s, and it was unusual to see females playing drums, so that in itself was very novel and drew eyeballs. And it almost didn't matter the ability, although in saying that, I think both me and Charisse we were just so dead set on getting good and getting hold of that external validation that we did work like crazy to just get better and better and better. But as great as that is, when you're getting like this lovely praise from the outside, oh, you're so good, oh, how interesting, oh, I've never seen a female drummer, blah, 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 blah. And then, getting called for gigs and getting up on stage and, seeing the crowds and the applause and all of that. And as the gigs get bigger and, all that sort of stuff, it's wonderful. It's very fun. But if you're solely relying on that, it's incredibly dangerous, like so dangerous. And like I say, I will talk in terms of music, but this can be just in life generally. Like I say, it's something that I'm having to face at the moment. Not me personally, but I'm seeing it happening in real time with someone who is looking for external guidance. It's not even validation. It's like all of their decisions are made by someone else. It's quite jarring, to say the least. But anyway, in terms of, let's talk about musicians, let's talk about scientific research. I'm not going to cite any of the studies because honestly, I forgot to write them down, and I don't want to be just reading stuff off. So do look this up, because there is scientifically backed evidence on this. So first of all, let's talk about like self-talk, I suppose, and being like a cheerleader, as it were, for yourself. If you're in fact, let's not talk about that first. Let's talk about looking to others for this external validation. It has been scientifically proven that by looking to others, there is a massive danger of emotional instability, anxiety, increased anxiety, and burnout. And when I tell you, those three words have just described the majority of my drumming career and life, and it is 100% because I was looking for external validation. 100%. No, there were probably many other factors, but it was a big part of it, for sure. When I would speak to myself, I was the most awful human ever to myself, which I've mentioned before, and I'm not someone I'm someone that's my intentions are to be kind to people, definitely, all of the time. It's just the way I'm wired. But it's almost as if all that kindness that I gave to everyone else, if you want to look at it as a scale, and it has to be balanced, right? So all that kindness, and then the equivalent of negativity was all being spewed, and that's the only word I'm going to use, spewed at myself. And I thought that this would, motivate me, keep me humble, and I'll go into that in a minute. But it meant that I just had such little value in myself, and to try and combat that, I would be looking to other people to tell me something different, which it meant that this would produce this kind of anxiety, this burnout, this overworking, working too hard all of the time, just trying to get that validation. Not healthy, let me tell you, not healthy. And like I say, if you want to talk about emotional instability, anxiety and burnout, that's like the underlining factors of my career, definitely. And as I always say, don't get me wrong, it afforded me some great opportunities, and working with some wonderful people. It gave me an unhealthy work ethic, but a beneficial work ethic for those that I was working with, definitely. But it also brought with it loads of issues personally and long term as well. So what I realized is that this kind of looking to others just showed me, and the way that I was speaking to myself, so I'm just going to take my shoes off so I can cross my legs because I want to get more comfortable. It just showed me how, and it's only in the last few years, the realization of how low my self-esteem was. It made me not able to make decisions for myself. Whenever I would get given opportunities, and I've spoken about this, I'd first and foremost think about the people that I would be saying yes or no to, and God forbid I'd say no to someone. So it was all about saying yes, and how can I make it work? How can I contort myself to make this work? And again, it just lowers your own self-worth, your own self-esteem. I would absolutely sacrifice myself just to avoid letting people down and all this sort of stuff, rather than going first and foremost from myself and going, right, what do I want? Which I didn't know, and I still struggle with even knowing now what I want off the back of this pattern of always looking to other people first. A really interesting byproduct of this as well, I find interesting, is, let's say I did get external validation from people. Let's say on a gig, someone would come up to me. We could be playing in the same band. That's probably a good way of explaining this. So let's say someone came to me and said, I really love playing with you. That was really great drumming. Really enjoyable. Anything of that nature. I would instantly just go, they're lying. It made me the most paranoid person. I thought everyone was lying to me that ever said anything nice about me, about my playing, about working with me. And not only did that kind of, like I say, that internal voice would just tear it down and almost devour it to feed this paranoia, but it would, whoever the person was that was saying these lovely things, I would reject it. At first I would reject it and just be like, oh, no, it's, it's nothing to do with me. Oh, it's just, it's because I was playing with you and I was just reacting to you. So no, I'm no good, like, blah, blah, blah. Really uncomfortable. But what that does is it kind of breaks that trust with someone that's trying to say something very honestly and earnestly, and it diminishes them as well, which would create, I'm sure, like maybe very small rifts between people of just like, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. Later on, I would change my response. I wouldn't change my internal reaction. I still thought that they were lying to me. They were just being kind. And I would say to them, oh, thank you, that's really kind of you to say. And that would be my go-to answer. But again, on the inside, I was just going, they're lying to you. Everyone's lying to you. You're no good. And it was just this constant battle of, I mean, negativity is not a strong enough word. Poison. The poison that I was spewing at myself when people were saying nice things. So I think what I'm trying to sort of illustrate is that even if I did get that external validation, it would not count. And I pose this question to you because I think it's an interesting question to ask. What would you need to hear to finally feel validated? Because I think, and this can be the same with like social media, putting stuff out there, how many likes can you get? Well, not enough, no matter how many, I need more, or, nice comments, oh no, but I need more, or maybe there's all these excuses that we will tell ourselves if the core of who we are isn't strong and isn't friendly to ourselves. Like, we have to be our own best friends. We really do. We have to be that person that's going, you're doing good, and none of us are perfect. I pretend like I'm not talking about self-delusion here. I'm like, you're the best. Oh my God, you're amazing. No. I mean, I don't think any of us can physically do that anyway, but I'm not talking about that. It's more like a kindness to ourselves. So another thing that I think is really interesting is that I do believe that we think that by being our own biggest cheerleader, by being on our own side, we will think that it will come across as very arrogant. I thought that also. I would think, oh my gosh, the worst thing to me would be to come across as arrogant. And I would just think, oh my gosh, they'll think I'm arrogant, they think I'm full of myself, and then essentially they will reject me. And I think this is the biggest fear that I do hear from people. But actually, yeah, obviously, there's an extreme of arrogance, which ironically, when you do meet arrogant people, I do find that it's because they're the most insecure, which is a whole other topic. And honestly, I don't believe I have experience in that. You might tell me something different, but in terms of my intention, I went the other way. I went self-deprecating. I didn't go arrogant and bullshit and what's the word? Like the big I am. That wasn't my approach, definitely not. But in reality, I understand that fear of arrogance. I had it. But the reality is, as I've mentioned before in this interaction with people where they would try and compliment me or whatever, what happens is instead, that other person will probably be more like, the kind of rejection of their compliment, not great. But also it might make them question not just your confidence, but your ability and your trustworthiness. Because at the end of the day, if you don't believe that you can do a good job, why would anyone else believe that you could do a good job on something? And that might come across verbally, but it can also come across subconsciously, body language, all these things that maybe we have less control over. Says the control freak, trying to control everything all the time. It's true, your body language is, and your use of language, the particular language that you use, that you probably don't even think about, will either very blatantly communicate to someone, or very subtly or subconsciously communicate to someone, oh, this person is actually not as good as I thought they were. They may even question their own judgment of you, or just like, oh gosh, I must have got that wrong, because their words are saying one thing, or their playing is saying one thing, but their being is telling me something completely different. So you have to have that internal confidence to kind of just bring an element of what's even the word? Is trust between people, and confidence in yourself to bring to the table, and just go, I can do this. I know I can do this. And I know, don't get me wrong, there are so many things that I'm so unconfident about, but there are a few core things that I'm like, no, I know that I am that person. I can do that thing. I have these skills. I know that I can bet on myself. That's how I feel. I'm like, right, I know I can bet on myself. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to make mistakes. I will make mistakes. But I also know that I have the tenacity to see things through, to go after what I want. I have good drive. I think it actually undermines me a lot of the time in terms of listening to energy levels and all that, which I'm trying to get better at. But I do have a confidence in myself, and it's probably the reason that you choose to listen to me, because if I was coming to this podcast going, well, I don't really know, and, I guess a little bit, I'm not great, and and it's not that I think that I'm great, but I think I'm capable. I think that there's a difference. I think I'm very capable. I know what I am able to do. And it's purely because I've just had a lot of experience. It's not about, look at this one amazing thing. It's like, no. There's all this other stuff that has built my confidence, because it's all the little bits of work that no one ever saw. But I know I can rely on myself, and there's strength in that. There is strength in that. And I've always had that, but I've never recognized it until recently, if that makes sense. Because I was too busy berating myself. So anyway, I wanted to share something that I didn't realize until I started researching this, and that I think is so important, because as someone who certainly spent the majority of my career, like I say, berating myself, beating myself up, spewing poison at myself to try and motivate myself, I would shame myself into working harder, burning myself out, creating massive amounts of anxiety. I've spoken about this on previous episodes, where I would imagine the worst case scenario, and that would inform the work that I needed to do. Whilst there are benefits to that, it's incredibly destructive. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, it's just it's not good. But I found this fact really interesting. I wrote it down because I think it's really important. So apparently, and again, scientifically backed, please look it up if this interests you. Apparently, self-kindness promotes confidence, accountability, and motivation or focus. So basically, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And I find it so interesting that by being kind to yourself, scientifically, it promotes more motivation and accountability and focus and all those good things, and in turn, self-confidence. Because I think that we've all been taught the opposite, where I feel like, I can only talk about myself, I feel like I thought before that self-kindness, being kind to yourself, would promote laziness and, oh, don't worry about it, just relax, go play a game instead, go watch film, it's fine, just relax, don't do anything, you can just lie down and sleep and be lazy. I think that's it. Self-kindness equals laziness to me. Madness. But as I reflect back on the last couple of years in particular, where I have tried to employ a kinder part of myself, actually, it has made things so much easier to do the work that I want to do, to make sure that work is valuable. I'm not just working for the sake of it. I'm not working myself into the ground because I feel I should be, and because I'm talking really badly to myself. You should be better. These people are doing that. Why are you not doing that? You should be doing more. You should feel guilty that you're not working more. You get to do this. You are, you're so privileged getting to do this for your living, and you're not even working 10 hours a day when you should be. All this sort of stuff. No. I've definitely tried, and again, this is a work in progress because I'm still really bad at this. I try to be more kind to myself, and I do feel that when I'm kinder to myself, there's a softness that makes it easier to execute. So for instance, yesterday I was meant to record this episode. Now, I could have berated myself, come on, do it. And I've done episodes like that where I have made myself, and there's a harshness to it, and there's a forcedness, and it doesn't flow, and it's very difficult. Whereas I was like, right, you have some time tomorrow. Why not just relax and, take the day? I had a nap yesterday instead of doing an episode, and it was the best nap and the best decision. And whilst I woke up this morning and I was a little bit tired, I kind of have been softly allowing myself to get this episode together. And the more that I did, the more interesting it got, and the more kind of valuable I feel it has become, and hopefully it's valuable to you too. So that is just an example, maybe not a coherent example, but an example of using that kindness to kind of promote the work. The work's still getting done. I know that I give myself enough of a buffer that I can, let it wait for a day and it's fine. But yeah, I think it's very interesting to this idea of being kind to yourself from the inside first of all, and then going from there and creating that inner self-confidence. So you're not looking to everyone else to, like, for instance, looking to other people to do this episode. Don't get me wrong, sometimes to motivate myself, I do think of the people that are expecting an episode, that I help, all that sort of stuff. But I start with, how am I feeling? Because that's the most important. If it got to Friday night and these come out on a Saturday morning and I still haven't done it, yes, I will utilize that, and maybe there will be a bit of berating. I'm not going to lie to you, but it's unusual these days, which I'm very pleased to say. So let's talk about how you actually build up this self-confidence, this cheerleading, self-kindness sort of situation in yourself. So I have a few sort of ideas that I propose to you. Please do use them if you want. So first of all is the idea of celebrating, setting intentions and celebrating progress over goals, because I love goal setting. You know this about me 100%, but I think that there's a danger of only acknowledging and celebrating when a big goal is met versus the progress towards that goal. So, and I see this in my students where they almost don't, like, the little wins to get to the bigger goal don't count because they're not the bigger goal. And I think that's so destructive. I think actually, just celebrating any amount of progress, and by intention, I mean, let's say that you're learning a particular song, right? And the goal is finishing that song, playing it perfectly, fine. But the intention is you're going to practice for 10 minutes every day. I think celebrating the 10 minutes that you do, or even just the intention of sitting down to practice, is way more beneficial than actually learning the song. Oh my gosh. Hello, sorry about that. I just suddenly needed the toilet. I was like, oh no, that's really, I can't take my mind off that. So anyway, as I was saying, I think the importance of celebrating the progress of the goals is really, really important, and the intentions of the goals is really, really important, because yes, celebrate the big goals and, have a nice big celebration of something, but even just the acknowledgement of the progress that you've made each time you sit down to intentionally do that is so important. And just give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back, some words of encouragement, like, well done for doing it. And it's not about it being perfect. As you can tell, okay, that was a perfect example, right? This episode, nowhere near perfect. I just had to stop to go use the loo and then come back. Do you think that is perfect? No. But am I going to kill myself over it? No. I'm just like, well, I'm human. Who cares? So I think that is a really, really important thing. And the way that I would encourage you to start doing that is something that I do with my students, which is that I encourage them to basically notice 3 wins that they've had in the previous week. And these can be huge wins. One of my students played an arena the other week, and they were like, I think that's one of my wins. And I was like, well, yeah, obvs. But, even tiny things like brainstorming content, or just sitting in silence for a few minutes a day. In fact, one of my students, that's their main goal, is to sit in silence for 1 minute a day. So let's say they manage that once in a week, 1 minute. That is a goal. That is a win. Sorry, that is a massive win to me. Like, it's about all of those things, because you need to create this idea of, like I say, kindness, compassion, softness with yourself, so that you can rely on yourself and you can trust yourself that when things are going pear-shaped, which they will, like it's life, you know that you can sit with yourself. You know that when it's just you, yourself, and I left, there's a kindness there. You don't need to rely on other people to be kind to you. You can be kind to you, and then you can move from that place. And as I've just said, there's scientific evidence that it's really good for you in terms of, like, being motivated and all that good stuff that we enjoy so much, and being focused and all of that. In terms of ways to build that trust, so the small wins thing I think is really important. In terms of building that trust with yourself, let's get back to playing, like trusting your abilities and all that sort of stuff. I think that there does need to be an element of honesty, but I think that we're all a bit too harsh on ourselves when we, let's say, recording yourself and listening back. You know that I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it's so important, not just auditorially, but also filming yourself and watching back. I think very, very important, very beneficial for a multitude of reasons. But I think we're all too quick to watch stuff back and only pick out the bad stuff. So I would highly suggest that when you listen to stuff back, or you watch stuff back, to always intentionally, for one bad thing, bad in inverted commas, or one thing that needs some work, let's say that, the rule is you must pick out 2 things that you like about what you've heard or seen, so that you are still building up yourself, as well as recognizing, okay, I could work on that, and then fine, work on that, have that intention, that's fantastic. There has to be the balance of like, yeah, but what is good here? Because otherwise you'll become a shell of yourself. And like I said, the danger of that, when you berate yourself or just are so mean to yourself and cruel to yourself, you will end up looking to other people, relying on other people to get your self-worth, to get that validation, and that is going to lead to a bad place, because everyone has their own motivations, be them good, bad, or other. I don't think anything is ever good or bad. People are always just doing the best they can, basically. But some people will not hesitate to use you in the way that they need it, and if you're not ready to have a good enough relationship with yourself to set boundaries, you will end up in positions where you are not happy. You find yourself going, how in the world did I end up here? And that has been so much of my experience in the past, where I found myself in situations where I'm going, I'm miserable. How have I got here? Why am I here? What am I doing? These revelatory moments that then I'm like, I have to cut and run, and that's not a great reaction, let me tell you. But it comes from the core of it is that I'm not listening to myself first, because I don't have that good relationship with myself, because whenever I have listened to myself, I berate myself. So instead, I think that kindness, extending that kindness and compassion to yourself. So as I say, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that you're very kind and compassionate to other people. Extending that to yourself is so unbelievably powerful. I can't even begin to tell you. And the other thing that I want to say is it does change the onus of your intentions of doing things. So for instance, the external validation of, let's say this podcast is a good example. If I was just looking for the external validation from people for this podcast, then I would be looking purely at the metrics. I'd probably be creating sensationalized content. I would be using clickbait and, doing controversial subjects that aren't actually beneficial to my audience. But I have known from day one that the reason that I have done this is purely for the people that were like me at 14 years old, who wanted to do this thing but didn't know how, didn't know where to start, knew that playing was part of it, but there was all this other elusive stuff that no one was talking about. And that's the reason that I do this, and it's the reason that I continue to do this. It's purely to help people. Now look, don't get me wrong, it's very likely, or possible but probably likely, that some people will take these episodes badly, they don't connect with them, blah 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 blah. And sometimes they even tell me, I think this is rubbish, rah, rah, rah. Fine, that's fine, that's not going to stop me, because I know in my core, I've always known in my core why I've done this, and that will make me continue to do it. As long as I feel I'm bringing some sort of value to the table and helping at least one person in some way, I'm going to do it, because that's my intention. And for that reason, I can only be proud of myself for doing this and continuing to do this over the years. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents on it, / I don't even know how long it's been that I've been recording, but I hope that this has helped in some way, and I really do just encourage you to be kind to yourself, to develop that relationship with yourself, the kindness, the self-talk, all of that, the kind of noticing if you're looking for external validation and all the things that come with that and the dangers of that. And yeah, hopefully it will get you to a place where you're more confident in yourself, you are doing things for reasons that are beneficial to you first and foremost. Obviously other people's intentions and stuff can factor into it, but the point is asking yourself first and doing things for your benefit, because you are the only one that's going to look out for you. That's the reality. So you better be nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself. But anyway, right, I'm going to leave you on that note. If you have excited this episode, no, not right. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please do feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. If you would like to suggest a topic episode for a future episode, or if you have a very specific problem that you're dealing with that you want to ask me about that I can answer on an episode, go to emilydrums.com/AMA. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can over at Hey Emily Drums. And if you would like to book in for a free 30-minute discovery call where we talk specifically about your journey, where you're at, where you want to be, and then I'll offer up any suggestions that I have as we go, and then talk about potentially working together one-to-one more long-term, then you can do that if you go to emilydrums.com. Anyway, hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I shall see you next time for another subject. All right, I will see you later. Bye.
The